Hey everybody, thanks for being here with us another week at the line. Myself, Jen Gerson, as ever, doing these videos for you. Interesting variety of things on the agenda this week. Just a real grab bag. I want to start with this. Amir Adaran is a professor, Carleton or University of Ottawa. I can't remember which. He was briefly getting some moral support this week because he was banned by Twitter. They kicked him off. I know that Twitter is not real life, and as a journalist, I try to not overreact to Twitter narratives, but this one was interesting, and it was interesting for two reasons. There was an emotional component, and there was also I guess we could call it sort of a societal component. Amir Adaran is a guy who has made a lot of controversial statements before. We're not going to get into them. We're not going to recap his long history here. We're just going to say he's a guy who has, over the years, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way by making controversial statements. Some people have found them offensive, and he has been aggressive in defending them. I'm just being honest here. I blocked him a long time ago. I didn't want that in my feed. Probably his most recent notorious outburst was saying that the Canadian federal government should not send medical aid to Alberta during the pandemic because Alberta's leaders are jerks. Like, you know, if we did that in wartime, that would be illegal collective punishment. But I guess we can do it in Canada in pandemics because Professor Adaran thought it was a good idea. That's the kind of take he would have. He was kicked off Twitter, given a ban for saying that Trudeau should be tarred and feathered. There was public outcry on free speech grounds. He was let back on. Jen, again, I blocked Adaran years ago. I have no desire to have any interaction with him. I have no desire to communicate with him in any way. I have no desire to know what he's talking or thinking about. He should not have been banned for using a outdated but obviously metaphorical figure of speech in a political context. If you want to kick him off Twitter for any number of other reasons, go ahead and do it. 2 weeks in a row now. Doug Ford last week, Amir Adaran this week. I'm finding myself defending people I would rather not be defending.
I mean, we've talked about Amir Adaran a few times before, and I think that he is the embodiment of the Onion piece. The worst person in the world you know is right. Like, he literally is that guy. You know, in this case, tarred and feathered is an interesting phrase. I mean, very obviously, if someone says that you should be tarred and feathered, they are not literally advocating covering you with tar and putting feathers on you. It's a figure of speech, and it is a well-established figure of speech.
That's it. It's a well-established one. It's not like saying something incredibly obscure and then going, oh, it was a metaphor.
No. I mean, tarred and feathered is very clearly a figure of speech here. So the question is, like, who complained and why? That, I think, is sort of interesting. He was, I think, calling for Trudeau to be tarred and feathered. He's become a sort of a very outspoken critic of Trudeau on Twitter. Liberal partisans, we call them TrueAnon, right? They're a particularly rabid group online. We know, like, to be honest, they're so rabid and so crazy and out there that it almost makes you wonder if the Liberals have contracted some kind of small bot army. Like literally, it's that nuts. And if you criticize Trudeau on Twitter, they will swarm you. It's incredible. So I wonder if that was a factor in him being banned in this case. I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious that no, he shouldn't have been banned. Like, that's completely ridiculous.
It's, you know, the funny thing is too, like, there's two meta points I would make about this on the societal level, and then we can go on and talk about something else other than Professor Adaran. Recently, an independent Ontario MPP, Randy Hillier, a kind of another outspoken guy, we'll say, had made another comment similar to this one, but it was different and had a different reaction. Mr. Hillier had said that he wanted the people of Ontario to gather at I don't remember the exact quote. He ended up deleting the tweet, but it was, come to the legislature, bring bubbling vats of hot tar and bring feathers, and we're going to pour it on the politicians, and then we're going to feather them. That, to me, is stretching the metaphor defense, right? Like, you and I had said recently in one of these videos that Chrystia Freeland was blocking bullets for Trudeau. Like, she was taking the blame for some controversial policies. You can look at that and go, oh, well, that's a violent reference to Deputy Prime Minister. Yeah, but in the context, like, it's clear what we're talking about. You can stretch that, where you can kind of go, someone should fire bullets at the Deputy Prime Minister and shoot her with bullets. politically speaking. Like there are people understand Hillier had really pushed the boundary. I think eventually he did delete the tweet, but he wasn't banned from Twitter. So there's purely a fairness issue here. I think the interesting social element to all of this, though, is that the Liberals are still talking about having some sort of internet regulator, right? The internet police, so to speak.
Yeah.
This is exactly the kind of thing it's going to come down to. Yep. You and I, for week after week here recently, have been talking about there are things that we should treat as crimes because they're criminal. Death threats, rape threats, harassment, intimidation, doxing. These things are generally already criminal, either under specific laws or we can apply existing laws to them. That's the easy stuff. The hard stuff is when you have to look at, oh, well, here's a politician saying tar, hard, and feathered.
Well, and not only that, but I mean, we're getting a little bit esoteric about this. Nobody seriously thinks that this is an edge case. This isn't an edge case. This is a case where the tweet embarrassed the prime minister, and so presumably either the prime minister or his supporters wanted it taken down under the auspices of a violent threat. I mean, this is the problem with these types of internet hate speech laws or hate speech laws or censorship
or something,
laws, right? Like, do you really think it's going to stop there? It's not. It's going to expand to anything that is embarrassing to the people who hold the reins of power. I mean, maybe this is something that we will get into when I have a little bit more information on the matter. But we've been had requests to take pictures down of certain politicians attached to pieces that were unflattering to those politicians. Now, I don't know where or why, and we're in the process of trying to uncover that. But do you think for one second that like any politician, whether it be conservative, liberal, NDP, isn't going to use that power to sort of image manage? Yep. I mean, of course they are. Of course they are.
Well, I mean, also more to the point, whatever you establish the rules to be, they will be broadened, and the marginal cases people will, meaning well, find reasons to apply the laws to a marginal case, which will expand the scope of the law, which will bring in new marginal cases, which will be expanded. Look, we have criminal prohibitions against intimidation, harassment, threats of violence, against hate speech targeting identifiable groups. We leave it there for a reason. Like, it's not because we're wimpy, it's because when you go much further than that, it gets really messy.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, we'll whip up something like that.
Alberta. So a couple interesting things are happening in Alberta. I don't know if this is of interest to a national audience, but a former chief of staff has kind of come forward alleging, I believe, sexual harassment and sort of a really abusive workplace environment in the halls of the Alberta legislature. My understanding of the staffer in question, who is very highly regarded, very, very good reputation, and very, very smart. So, you know, she's making these allegations. She has receipts and they're going to come out. So there's some local petty drama in the midst of all of this. Former Wild Rose leader Brian Jean is talking about coming back running as a UCPM MLA and basically kicking Kenny out. I've heard some rumors, I don't know how valid they are, that Kenny's days are numbered, that he's promised to step down. I don't know if that's actually true. It's just a rumor at this point. But Alberta is, as always, the province to watch because it is a goddamn soap opera.
You know what? The piece you'd mentioned about the possible workplace misconduct issues and the sexual harassment in the Alberta legislature. What's interesting is here, me thousands of kilometers away in Toronto, I'd still heard that piece was coming. Like that one, that one was telegraphed a long way in advance, where we all knew that there was something coming. And look, I don't want to overstate my insider nature here. Like, I didn't know the details, I didn't know anything substantive about it, but I knew for weeks before that came out that there was something coming and that it was going to be a problem for certain people within the Alberta government. I mean, look, we ran a piece this week by Kristen Raworth in The Line talking about institutional problems addressing sexual misconduct issues. She wasn't writing specifically about the Alberta legislature. She was writing more about the armed forces, the NHL, because of the recent Kyle Beach issues. The legislature would sure as hell apply, though, right? So cultural change is coming. There is progress being made, but God, is it slow. So if you want to do a quick little Alberta medley,
just like graphically, just because I'm not sure how much interest that's going to have to a national audience. But
Quebec, the other interesting province. I don't fully understand this, so I'm going to have to do a little research on this. I also don't know if you or I are the person to write about this. If we do put something about this in the dispatch, it might be worth asking a Quebecer or someone better, well, who knows Quebec better, basically, to look at this. But there was a funny freak out this week where the CEO of Air Canada, having apparently had been born with like a hopeless case of tone deafness, what made some comments to the effect that, hey, I've lived in Montreal a long time and I've never needed French. I only speak English and I live a great life in Montreal, which seems like a really benign statement to make if you have never paid any attention to Canadian politics. And what immediately happened in Quebec is, the French language is in danger. Look, the comments, it was the CEO of Air Canada, I think. The comments were stupid. Like, why is the CEO of Air Canada poking that bear? Like, that's our job. Like, and I was talking to some friends of mine in Quebec about this very issue, and these are all Federalists, bilingual Quebecers, all of them proud Canadians, and they're saying this stuff is catnip for the Quebec nationalists. Like they live for this stuff. One friend of mine, I say this with affection because there's a pretty good chance they're going to see this, so know that I love you, but is what I sort of eye-rollingly refer to as the typical Montrealer, which is to say they're a Torontonian now. Like Toronto is full of Montrealers who insist to their dying breath that Montreal is the superior city, but they're raising their kids in Toronto. And this friend had been pointing out to me, oh, but this is such an unusual incident. I don't get this at all. Why is everyone so upset? He's not a political figure. He's just like he's a corporate guy. Why does anyone care that the corporate guy speaks English? And I was just saying to her, well, first of all, there's a general answer to this. First of all, the threshold for taking offense everywhere is dropping every year. Like it's just going down and down and down and down and down.
Yep.
The angry mobs are coming after ever more marginal targets, and that's true across the board. So that's nothing particular about Quebec, but it's true across the board. The other thing is, this is weird for Quebec only in that sense, like that they've now sort of dropped down another rung of offense taking from outside Quebec. And I say this as someone who likes Quebec just fine, admirer of Quebec's history, admirer of their culture, hopes they choose to stay in the Federation. This is an entirely typical Quebec freakout. And I know
100%. There's nothing unusual about this at all. Have you not been paying attention? They do this all the time.
Anglo-Quebecers in the rest of Canada, I think, are in an awkward position, and I have sympathy for it. They are better informed than you and I on the nuances of this stuff. So they probably do have a better sense, a better read on what's important, what's not. But I also think they have a little bit of that apologetic, oh, we're really sensitive to the criticism. Like, don't make fun of my home province. I said to my friend, this is just one of those weird things that Quebec does from time to time. And the ROC, we write it off as quirky, but it's not. It's just embarrassing. Quebecers,
the Quebecers, particularly a particular type of subsection of Quebecers who are invested in this grievance culture, right?
Yeah.
Are cry bullies. I don't want to tell you, like they're cry bullies. They people say some random Anglo says the wrong thing, and the amour propre of the entire nation is offended, and like they lose their shit. And then it just over time it creates this kind of cultural power because most Anglos are just like, it's just not worth it to offend Quebec, so most people just shut up about it. But it's
well, like I said, we've chosen to treat as quirky something that is actually,
it's pernicious.
Yeah,
it's pernicious
for the sake of keeping.
You saw it with Sachi Crow with the Bill 21 stuff. Amir Attaran wound up walking into this a year or two ago and wound up getting condemned. Maclean's got condemned by the National Assembly for a cover that offended people. Jan Wong lost her career basically because she dared point out something very obvious about Quebec culture. And I think that even Andrew Coyne's been condemned at this point. Like this is not new.
Well,
the problem is that the Anglers continue to take it seriously.
Well, I mean, and this is why I am sympathetic to them to the extent that I get why no one wants to have guests over who inflame family tensions. And I can understand why Anglo-Quebecers are like saying to the rest of Canada, keep it down, guys, keep it down.
It's still something that's endemic to the Canadian like conflict averse. We're just going to allow Quebec to essentially separate in all but name because we just can't stand an actual fight. Right? It's just impolite to actually stand up for a principle. It's just difficult. So
a loveless marriage might be economically better than a contentious divorce.
Canada is literally a nation that is a loveless marriage. We are a loveless marriage of a nation.
But the costs of divorce are high, and I'm not sure either side wants to go through with it. So, all right, I don't think we'll whip something up, but we'll poke around. We'll see if anyone else wants to fire something together on that. This is not about Quebec, but it's related to Quebec, obviously, because of the dairy farmers' influence there. I forget the exact term, but basically the dairy cartel, big dairy in Canada, is intending to raise considerably the price of core dairy products. I think it was milk, cheese, and butter. I'll have to go back and look at the details before I write this up, but this is something that made news earlier this week. I had two immediate reactions to this. The first of all, you and I have been talking about inflation. The line's been talking about inflation. We're going to have more about inflation soon. Some of what is going to be happening in dairy prices, I think it was like an 8.5% planned increase next year. Some of that is going to reflect inflation, that it really is just them passing along costs. Like costs of all their agricultural inputs will be up, so we're going to end up paying for that. Some of it, though, is undoubtedly opportunistic. Hey, it's a great opportunity. If our cost of inputs are going to be up 5%, we'll put our sale price up 8%. We'll pocket a little money. And because of how we've structured dairy in this country, there's not a goddamn thing we can do about it. Like, what are we going to do? Just go out and buy American milk? We can't. What is interesting to me, though, you and I had talked a little bit about this. This is kind of like, this was a moment for big dairy to kind of not be evil assholes. And instead they decided oh, you know what? Let's actually be evil assholes. What's interesting is that you and I have talked about this. The pandemic has been an opportunity for guys like me, who are generally speaking fairly pure free market capitalists, to take a second look at supply management and to go, you know what? As much as I have traditionally opposed this on political and economic grounds, when the entire world was consumed by raging viral fire and all the borders were slamming shut and there were the beginnings of the supply chain difficulties we still have, I kind of like the fact that we had some degree of...
We had the opportunity to know that we could make enough milk and dairy locally that even if we were spending a bit more for it, that it winds up being almost an insurance cost. Okay, you're going to spend an extra $1 or $2 for your milk, but hey, you'll always have it. If things go to hell, it's always going to be there. Now, you
all
can
that goodwill,
all
that goodwill, just put it in the fucking cannon and boom.
And here was a real moment for Canada's dairy farmers. Like at a moment when grocery bills are about to go through the roof, they could have made a point of keeping their costs or keeping their sale prices low, even if that meant in the short term taking a bit of a hit on it. They 100% could have done that and said, look, this is why we have a supply managed system. It's to keep the cost of your groceries stable, even at times of major economic uncertainty or
geopolitical instability. Yeah.
Geopolitical instability. And hey, here's the argument. We're gonna make sure that the cost of your groceries remains as stable as we can maintain it, even if that means a slight loss to us. And then you can start to see the value of generally higher dairy prices in the long run. It just becomes an insurance policy. Okay, we're going to pay a little bit more, every day, but
hey, remember that time
when things got really out of control and my egg and my basics didn't go up. No, fuck it. We're not going to do that.
Also, when we knew we would have them, like when
we knew exactly.
Because one of the things,
but if these guys are going to just behave like a cartel and they're just going to pump up prices along with everyone else, then fuck it, free market it is.
One of the underappreciated issues with the current supply chain problems, which are not getting better, is that when containers get stranded on imports or on ships, there's a finite global supply of containers. Mm-hmm. North American agricultural products are often loaded into these and sent to other parts of the world. A lot of parts of the world in the near future hopefully won't be in famine, but we'll be facing food insecurity, and we'll be having high inflation on food because North American agricultural products are going to have a hard time getting out of North America right now.
Mhm.
And this stuff's perishable. Like, this was a moment for the supply management cartels in Canada to step up and go, hey, guess what? During COVID, you were always going to have eggs in the fridge and milk in the fridge, and you would have had cheese. With the supply chain problems, isn't it nice to have domestic supply? As you said, with inflation, well, you know what? We've done okay the last few years. We appreciate Canadians supporting us. We're going to do our best to keep the cost of your staples low. Instead, the dairy cartel's response is,
Yeah.
okay, duly noted.
Okay. Duly noted.
So we shall indeed duly note that. This is not something you would write. This is not something I would write. We don't have the qualifications for it, but we do have good networks that bleed over into the United States, and a big week there. And if you are Joe Biden, not a happy week.
No, Virginia went to the Republican governor, what's his face, and again, this is why we're not writing this piece. And also, they just lost New Jersey.
They squeaked through with New Jersey. Yeah.
They went into that race, my understanding is like 15 points ahead, and they squeaked through by an absolute hair. So that's not good news if you are a Democrat in the U.S. And to be blunt, I mean, there are going to be lots of different interpretations as to why that happened, but the real thing that killed the Democrat governor in that case, what was his name? McAuliffe, there we go, is that he said something to the effect of like, you as a parent shouldn't have a right over how your children are educated. You know, this in the midst of all the critical race theory and trans bathroom stuff that's been flaring up in the culture war down there. And the reporters responded to that, the giant fuck you. So
this line video has a very high middle finger into the camera.
Yeah, exactly. I think YouTube's going to demonetize us or something. But anyway, long and short of it, I mean, the reasons for any specific laws are always complicated and manifold. But it does look like people are turning away from the woke shit quite dramatically at the electoral level. Whether or not you think that's good or bad or blah, blah, blah is irrelevant. It just seems to be a factor that is increasingly in play. The Republicans are looking to sweep the midterms. And the concern with all of this is that, you know, if Trump or someone smarter than him winds up winning the next primary for the Republican president, that person's very much in line to be the president. The odds of Biden at this point being a two-term president are not high. So America, gonna have to talk about your successor ideology and how it's
got it. Well, we already had some indication of this. There's been a series of stories coming out recently reflecting polling and also reflecting electoral results in the United States that, and we knew this already after November of 2020, defund the police was a catastrophic slogan. Where it was used, even among minority communities, like it turns out that marginalized Americans don't like the idea of the police going away. They quite like the idea of police. They want the police to be better, but they don't want them to go away. So that was maybe the early warning of this. Here's the thing. I think like an economically and socially moderate Democratic Party that has pragmatic issues on pragmatic answers to economic issues would be electorally competitive. Maybe they win, maybe they lose. I don't know, but they'd be competitive. I don't think the American people are ready to be governed by the angrier fringe of Twitter. And I don't know.
Radical thought, Matt. Radical thought.
I don't know what it's going to take for the Democrats to get this. I think some Democrats get this. I don't think enough of them get it. So I don't know. We'll seek out either an American who could write us a blurb or someone with better understanding of this stuff. This is one that we have not really talked about. Normally we like I have here on my notepad, right? Like we talk about what we're going to include in these videos. You and I have included this to talk about in the video, but we have almost nothing to say about it because it just happened. Just when we were doing this, the new National Defense Minister, Anita Anand, has come out and said that she is adopting recommendations by one of the Supremes. I think it was Louise Arbour, that investigations into I think it was assault. Again, I'm going to have to go check this because this is just happening in real time now, that criminal investigations will be removed from the military chain of command and put in civilian hands here. You'll still have military police, but they'll handle other stuff. Sexual allegations will be handled by civilians. This has been long called for. Kristen Raworth, I've already mentioned her piece in The Line this week. This is exactly in line with what she was saying. Institutions cannot police themselves. We all know this. I don't know why we keep forgetting it, but we know it. The only political comment of note, though, is that Anand has been the defense minister for like 45 minutes, and she's doing this. What the fuck was Harjit Sajjan waiting for?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, I think you're the military buff out of the two of us, so I think that you should probably write that one and make that observation.
Doesn't have to be a military buff at this point. This is a political thing, right? I mean, there's
true. But I mean, like the significance of moving these types of investigations into the civilian space, I think that needs to be addressed because that's a big deal.
Okay, fair enough, and I can do that. To the political side of it, though, is I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, so either this was already planned and it was delayed so that the new minister has a quick deliverable to step in and go, hey, you know, as my first act, I order that, boom, tangible sign of progress, right? Or was this an inevitability that Sajjan was resisting? Well, like, was this something that everybody was on board with except for the minister himself for whatever reason? Neither option looks good for the Liberals on this one. And something you and I talked about last week in the Dispatch was Trudeau's legacy play, so to speak, trying to shore up his legacy. And I don't know what, I mean, Anand might actually deliver the goods. She might be an improvement here. Yikes, this is a festering wound for the Liberals, particularly on the feminism file. Now, we talked already about True Anon. I'll probably get an earful from them, but I don't know how they fucked this one up this badly.
So how do you want to divide this out? What do you want me to do? Alberta?
Why don't you do Alberta and Virginia? Go track down an American. I have an idea for who could write Quebec. I will go poke around. I will do Adoran and Twitter, and I will do Dairy Cartel, and I'll do CF. Also, one of our occasional contributors has already said they're going to send us something about raising the flag. The Liberals are signaling apparently that they are going to finally raise the flag just in time to lower it again on Remembrance Day. And what we do with it after that, I don't know. Maybe it just goes down on Remembrance Day and stays down. So we'll get you an update on that one. A couple other stories we're looking at, but we think we're going to assign them to columnists. And as always, you know, look, we're not going to publish the Dispatch for about 36 hours after we film this. So God only knows what will happen between then and now. Jen, I will leave you to your beautiful beach scene and enjoy the rest of your day.
It's a Zoom beach.
I know it's a Zoom beach. Yeah, I knew that. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.